Hello everyone, well here we go again. It's time to bring another historic weather video. So this time we're not going far back at all. We're only going back to 2019 and 2020. We're going to be looking at the summer and autumn of 2019 and winter 2019-2020. We may extend into the spring if we have time, but if not, we'll pick it up actually when we do August Bank Holiday Monday's historic weather video, because I can tell you that one will focus on the rest of 2020 and also into 2021. So we'll go to the winter of 2020, 2021, and we'll come more or less up to where we are right now, I suppose, on August Bank Holiday Monday. So this historic weather video and August Bank Holiday Monday's historic weather video will kind of be a double bill with one another. So I shall get on that for you very shortly, just to say that I'm having a little bit of a break at the moment, so that is the reason that we're doing these historic weather videos this week. We did one a couple of days ago looking at 1846, 1847, so much further back than this one. So these two are really contrasting with one another, aren't they? One from the 1800s and one just a year or so ago. But yeah, I'm having a little bit of a break. Sav's doing some weather forecasts for you as well, so please check out those videos if you have not yet done so, and see how the furry one's getting on. Thank you so much, Sav, for doing some of these forecasts for me while having my break. I'll be back in a couple of days. I'll be back on Sunday with all of the regular Sunday stuff, including the live stream. So I wonder what I'll be doing while you're watching this. I don't know, because I'm recording this in advance, so it makes you wonder what I'll be doing while you're watching this, doesn't it? I'm going to say thank you so much to westessential.de for their historic archive of charts, and also for so much of the information that you hear from this in this video that will come from Trevor Harley. So, as I always say with these historic web videos, I'm like the sort of cog in the wheel, really just like the narrator of the storyline, but it really is the charts combined with the information from Trevor Harley that brings it all together. So thank you so much to Weta and also to Trevor Harley for allowing us to use their information and their archive of charts and whatnot. So thank you so much. You can find the link to both websites in the description. What are you into Mustafa? I haven't seen that for a long while. I thought we'd start this one a little bit different. You have not seen Mustafa for a long time in a video, have you? But we're going to crack on, so we're going to begin in June 2019, so I shall turn the webcam off, because I've got quite a lot to, notes to read, so I'll be looking down a lot. You don't want to see me doing that, so I'll turn the webcam off, and we're going to begin at the beginning of June 2019. Now, for some reason, I can't show you, the first day, like I would normally do so. So, the first chart in June 2019, if I can show you, is from the 2nd of June 2019. Actually, we have an unsettled start to this warm, hot summer with low pressure over and to the west, and we coach an income those westerly winds. So, an unsettled and quite cool start to June 2019. June 2019 has a CT of 14.2, not far from average whatsoever. Trevor Harley writes about this particular June, record-breakingly hot in Europe, but changeable here. Overall, the mean temperature was close to average after a warm start. It doesn't look that warm, actually, but we haven't got the first day, which probably was a warmer day. After a warm start, it turned cool and wet. Very wet in Lincolnshire, particularly between the 10th and the 13th, with cool northeasterly winds causing localised flooding. Going to be 76 millimetres of rain in Lincolnshire from the 10th through to the 11th. So let's have a look at that then. We begin with low pressure, really wrapping in from off the Atlantic. So a proper summer monsoon type pattern, return of the westerlies, I suppose. Plenty of cloud and outbreaks of rain, through the first week of June 2019. That was a particularly deep area of low pressure there on the 7th, no doubt bringing loads of wet weather. These unsettled conditions continue into the 10th and the 11th as well. So it's these northeasterly winds combined with trough of low pressure that brings all of this rain into the east. As I said, 74.6 millimetres of rain falling at Wainfleet in Lincolnshire between the 10th and between the 11th. So a proper old cool wet start to June 2019, but there is going to be an improvement later on. To the middle of the month, though, low pressure continues to be dominated. We're seeing in combination with northern blocking. It's certainly a cool and wet start to June 2019. But again, towards the 17th and 18th, we are beginning to try and raise the heights from the southwest, but even up to this point, looking quite unsettled. It's the 20th of June 2019, for example. And again, we're still looking pretty unsettled. Now, the 21st, the Azores High begins to start making a move. Azores High begins to start reaching up from the southwest and begins to form an area of high pressure by the 22nd of June. This is the beginning of the first sort of push of rather hot weather. Upper air temperatures don't look particularly exciting at this point, but we do have a lot of heat down in the Mediterranean, of course. So Trevor Hardy writes, the final third of the month was warmer and more humid with some thunder. The 29th of June, we'll get to in a moment, extremely hot in Europe with a Saharan plume of very hot air. Sunshine was 95% of average in this month. It was dull in the Midlands and in the West, but sunnier than average in eastern parts of Scotland. So let's see what happens with this hot end to the month, shall we? This will bring back a few memories. 23rd, 24th of June 2019, the heights are rising both to the north and to the east. We're beginning to push up the heat from the Sahara into Europe. Look at that plume of hot air pushing out of Africa through the Med and in towards France and western parts of Europe on the 24th. This is the 25th. Again, looking really hot through many parts of Europe. There's the upper air temperature showing again, plus 20 Celsius, ice firm air through Germany down into France. We're still not overly warm in the UK at this point, but we're certainly on the periphery of it. That's the 26th of June 2019, so we've got high pressure just out to our west, and we begin to pull in these hot east to southeasterly winds. Look at the upper air temperatures showing that plus 20 Celsius ice firm getting ever closer to us. Now, do you remember, everyone, the video that I did in June 2019? I'll just have to talk about that a moment. It's up on a bit of a tangent, really, but who remembers the video titled this is the most extreme witness, I think it's witness, the most extreme GFS run you will ever see, and the GFS run was pulling in the plus 20 to plus 25 Celsius isotherms, I think, and you know, I really went to town with the thumbnail and also the title on that one. Witness the most extreme hot GFS run you'll ever see. That video still gets views. You know, I know it does. People still find that on YouTube and still have a watch of it. So you have not yet seen it. You know, you just put that into the search bar. You know, witness the most extreme hot GFS run you will ever see, GavsWeatherVids, and it'll come up. You know, you'll see it, and it is a good watch. But didn't actually turn out to be. I thought, like with the 25 Celsius ice firm pushing in, if it came off, we'd be like lifting the temperature into record-breaking hot levels. We did not, and there was a very specific reason for that. But anyway, let's get back to business. So I'll just tell them webcam back off. Right, let's get back to business then. So we go through to the 27th of June, and again, look at this high pressure centered over the country. We're pulling in this east to southeasterly wind. Look how hot the upper air temperatures are. That is plus 20 Celsius firm into southern parts of the country on this day, Thursday, 27th of June. Plus 25 Celsius firm is across northern parts of France. What happens next with the upper air temperature? Let's go through to the next day, which is the 28th. Again, the high pressure is centered in the North Sea, and we're bringing in these hot southerly southeast winds. Look at that upper air temperature profile. Absolutely incredible. We bring them a plus 20 Celsius ice firm into northern England, and the plus 25 Celsius ice firm is getting towards their English Channel. However, it was not a record-breakingly hot spell. It was in terms of upper air temperature. That is record hot for June in terms of upper air temperature. But on the surface, it wasn't as hot as that because we pulled in cooler air off the North Sea, I think. Just purely due to the fact that it's June and not July or August. If that happens in end of July or into August, then you know, 40 degrees is potentially achievable, I think. But it just happened a little bit too early. However, of course, we know in July we are going to get another very extreme push of heat. The highest temperature of the month for June 2019 actually occurs on the 29th in Northolt and also Heathrow, getting to 34.8 0, which for June is a very, very hot temperature, of course, but not anywhere near like the record. So let's go through to that day, 29th of June, and there you see it. Well, again, the plus 25 Celsius ice went just over the other side of the English Channel. We're above 20 degrees at 850 HPA in this southern southeastern part of the country. So we're definitely lifting temperatures, into the 30 Celsius widely across many southern and eastern areas. As I say, if this had happened like a month or so later, then we would have really been on for the record, I think. We've also got a bit of a trough moving in off the Atlantic. That's beginning to trigger cloud and thunderstorms, so that would have had a limited effect on the temperatures as well, I suppose. That's how we get to the last day of June 2019, and we're beginning to pull in cooler and fresher air from the North Atlantic. Look at the upper air temperatures. They're lowering. All that extreme heat is being pushed over into the continent. So a band of thunderstorms probably pushes across the country, or a band of rain, and then it turns significantly cooler and fresher. So we begin July 2019 on a cooler, fresher note, with winds in from a northwesterly direction. Welcome relief after those earlier hot days, and the upper air temperatures look so much fresh with the heat really pushed into eastern and southern parts of Europe. Now, July 2019 has a central temperature of 17.5, so it is a very warm month. Trevor Harley writes it's very warm overall. It has a cool start, followed by high pressure building, particularly giving fine weather over the south and west. Second half of the month is going to go a little bit more unsettled, but then there's going to be a really hot spell later on. Let's see how it all unfolds then. So we start off with that cooler, fresh feel, and then the Azores high bridges back in from the Atlantic, bringing, a nice, pleasant spell of weather, really, mainly dry, quite warm, not excessively hot, and quite pleasant conditions. By the sip, we're pulling in a bit of a northerly there across the country, but still basically anti-cyclone, so a lot of dry and fine weather to enjoy. Now into the second week of July 2019, and low pressure beginning to start meandering in from off the Atlantic Ocean, but the high pressure again sort of resumes and returns. All the time, never excessively hot with this, quite warm, pleasant, near normal temperatures. Upper air temperatures don't look excessively hot. All of the heat is like pushed down into the far south of Europe for the time being. It will rise again though into the second half of the month, and again we find low pressure just coming in off the Atlantic to a relatively changeable type scene here as we're going into the third week of July. But now, 21st July, almost to the day back in June, interestingly, where the Azores high made its move. Here we go again. It's 21st of July, 2019, and the Azores high is again beginning to make its move and starting to push northwards. So Trevor Harley writes, there's an exceptional hot spell between the 22nd to 26th of July. A new July record was set on the 25th with 38.1 degrees at Cambridge, that's the Botanical Gardens, of course, in an exceptional heat wave. It was later confirmed that 38.7, 101.7 Fahrenheit was reached at this is the Cambridge, so there's like two Cambridges there. So it's 38.1 in Cambridge City, I suppose, and then 38.7, so that's round up to 39, of course, which is 101.7 Fahrenheit at the Botanical Gardens on the same day. That's the one. That beats 2003. Right, let's have a look at it then. So up comes the Azores high. Let's have a look at those upper air temperatures. Well, now much hotter. Oh, it's not excessively hot, but much hotter. We're getting the temperatures back into the 30 Celsius. Notice the heat really building again from Africa into Spain and into parts of France as well. Let's roll on through to the 23rd. That high pressure begins to slip eastwards, opens the door to these really hot winds to start pushing up from the south. Again, up comes a plus 20 Celsius iceberg. Like 30, 40 years ago, but plus 20 Celsius iceberg was extraordinarily rare to see that in a summer. Now we see it quite regularly, so it just goes to show how things have changed, I guess, doesn't it? But here we go again on the 23rd. Up comes that plus 20 Celsius isotherm. The heat is building and building and building, and we're going to move on into the 24th of July. And again, we've got a perfect setup here to produce extreme heat. We've got a big ridge of high pressure covering many northern central parts of Europe. We've got a trough of low pressure out to the west of Ireland. This trough does play a part because it acts as like a funnel between the trough and the ridge to start to bring up those extreme temperatures from the south. So the plus 25 Celsius ice is back in over France, into Germany, again, plus 20 Celsius isotherm is just over the other side of the English Channel. This is the 25th of July, 2019. And you can see how exceptional this chart is looking. So again, this is the peak of the heat wave. This is when we get the new temperature record at the Botanical Gardens. So let's have a look at the upper air temperature, remind ourselves of them. Yep, there's the plus 20 Celsius isotherm surging all the way up to eastern Scotland, plus 25 Celsius isotherm, again, just over the other side of the English Channel. Interesting, isn't it, how that plus 25 Celsius isotherm does struggle to make it over the English Channel. I suspect that plus, if you're waiting for 40 degrees to be recorded in the UK, I suspect that plus 25 Celsius isotherm has to get over the English Channel. It is so very, very close to making it, but just shy of the Channel over northern parts of France. But this is extraordinarily hot. We round that temperature from the Botanical Gardens of 38.7 up to 39 degrees. So we're only 1 degree off that big 40, that big 40 degrees that so many people are waiting for. I remember this was such a hot day. You know, it was so oppressive, and you know, just very intense humidity, really uncomfortable. I'm sure so many of you will remember this day, how uncomfortable it was. Notice it is starting to cool down in the west as well. That's as we're bringing this low and a weather front in from off the Atlantic. So inevitably we can't, you know, we're so far north that we can't sustain these extreme high temperatures all that long before we generate low pressure over the ocean and start to move it towards us. So inevitably we are now starting to cool things down. But nevertheless, it wasn't until like the evening that eastern areas started to see those temperatures beginning to reduce. In the west, the temperature did reduce, you know, through the course of the day. But in the east and the south, it remains so incredibly hot through much of the day. Now, by the 26th, it's virtually all over. It is still very warm to hot in the east, but noting the extreme upper air temperatures are receding away once again. I think the far southeast still got temperature well into the 30s, though, here on the 26th. Where I'm in Northampton, I just remember this day, Friday 26th, as being cloudy and very humid, but with a notable drop in the temperature, and there was a lot of cloud. And then, really bizarrely, over this weekend of the 27th and the 28th of July, we generate this area of low pressure over the country. So there's showers and longer spells of rain, and the upper air temperatures, although still pretty warm, it actually turns really, really cold. And I say cold because it was so bizarre. I've never experienced weather like it, but like on that Thursday, the 25th, we're approaching 100 Fahrenheit here in Northampton. By Sunday, the 28th, it's overcast and pouring with rain through the whole day. And remember, temperature did not get above 14 degrees under that persistent, heavy, thundery rain. So we went from something like 37 here, I think, a couple of degrees off that 39, so it was around 37, I think, on the Thursday, and by the Sunday, the temperature was stuck at around 14 degrees, and it was pouring with thundery rain all day. I've never experienced such a contrast, you know, in such a short space of time. Even for the UK, that is really extreme, I have to say. Again, let me know in the comments whether you remember the sort of extreme swing that we had from that Thursday, where we recorded those extraordinary high temperatures, to the Sunday, where it was so cold and wet. Right, we're coming up to the end of July 2019, and in comes low pressure pushing in from off the Atlantic, bringing further showers, if not longer spells of rain with them. And so we end July 2019, which includes the hottest day on record on the 25th. We end it on a much cooler, fresher, and also unsettled note. Let's move through to August. Now, August CET comes out at 17.1. So interesting that, you know, August is a very warm month in its own right, just a little bit lower compared to July. And you would expect that July to be hotter than that, really, wouldn't you? 17.5. That's quite interesting, isn't it? That a month that contains like the hottest day on record, normally they will be 18 Celsius plus CET months, sometimes even 19 Celsius CET months. But that was a little bit low, and that's because, of course, the first half of the month had quite a cool, unsettled spell. Anyway, we're moving through to August. So Trevor Harley writes about August 2019, mostly unsettled, but with a hot sunny sunny spell in the south from the 21st to the 27th. Let's run through and see what happens then. So again, we've got we're starting off August 2019 with high pressure ridging in from the north. Low pressure is out to our west. This low pressure comes moving in through the first week of the month, so unsettled and relatively cool. Look at the upper air temperatures; they're looking a great deal lower compared to what we had in July. And the low pressure brings showers along as well as rain. Another pretty deep and quite autumnal looking low there on the 9th of August 2019. So that's bringing almost autumnal type weather across the country. Wow, wow, wow. Look at the upper air temperatures, so much lower compared to what we had back at the latter part, or in the latter part of July. These unsettled showering, so it is quite an unsettled summer this well, but with these, very intense spikes of heat. How strange a summer was the summer of 2019. You know, it's almost like a manic summer, wasn't it, with extreme swings. Up to the 15th of August 2019, we're still unsettled, really, with low pressure continuing to roll in from off the Atlantic, and this carries on into the third week of the month as well. I forgot that August 2019 was this unsettled, I have to say, just regular low pressure rolling in. But then again, we get to around the 20th, 21st, and look at this, the Azores high is beginning to make a move. So we get the Azores high making a move around the 20th, 21st of June, we get it making a move around the 20th, 21st of July, and we get it again around the 20th, 21st of August. So it seems to be some sort of 4-week repeating pattern here of the Azores high building in. And so here we go again. We're coming into the final sort of 3rd of August 2019 with the Azores high back in business, sitting over to the east of the country, bringing the wind back up from the south. Now, though, of course, we are so much later in the summer that it is very difficult by late August to start to pull up the plus 20 and plus 25 Celsius isotherms. It does turn very warm, though. Trevor Harley writes that we get this hot spell setting up between 21st and the 27th, giving a very hot August bank holiday. It was 30.7 degrees at Heathrow on Saturday the 24th. The record late bank holiday temperature then occurred on Sunday the 25th with 33.3 degrees recorded at Heathrow yet again. It was the hottest late bank holiday Monday on record by some way, beating 2017 with 33.2 degrees at London Heathrow on the 26th. And then we get to 33.4 degrees at Heathrow on Tuesday 27th, just beyond the bank holiday weekend, of course, the highest temperature of the month, an extraordinary late spell. So, you know, we're well into the 30s again, even if we aren't pulling up that plus 25 Celsius isotherm, as I don't think we do. Let's move through to the 24th, see what happens. So that's 24th, that's 25th. So this is like over bank holiday weekend. It does look like very hot weather, doesn't it? Plus 15 Celsius isotherm is through the country, but we aren't bringing up that plus 20 Celsius isotherm. It's too late in the year, really, to be able to start pushing that up. 26th, bank holiday Monday, again, looks really hot across many parts of particularly England and Wales. I think Scotland, Northern Ireland get a little bit left out with this particular hot spell. And then this is 27th. Again, we heard the temperature that we got on Tuesday, the 27th of August. But a fungi breakdown then starts to take place as we come through into the final sort of stages of the month. Trevor Harley writes, a fungi breakdown was followed by a cooler end to the month. So, around the 27th, 28th, we have that fungi breakdown, and then we begin to turn things cooler as we move into the last days of August 2019. And that brings us to the end of the summer of 2019. Extraordinary summer that it was. I hope we are able to bring you back some memories with that. Now, we've talked for quite some time actually covering the summer, but we've got a lot more to show you. We're going to have a look at the autumn and also the winter of 2019, 2020. We'll have more in the second part of the video, but you go and stretch your legs, get yourself a cup of tea and a comfy chair, and we'll be back very, very shortly. I'll see you soon. Okay, we're back and we're ready to resume our historic video looking at 2019-2020. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that for GavsWeatherVids. Drop a comment and let us know what you think about the video when you're finished watching it. So in the first part of the video, we was talking about the summer of 2019. I think we give that a pretty good going over. We're going to go on into the autumn and the winter of 2019 and winter 2019-20 for you right now. So let's do this then. We're going to begin on the first day of September, looking a lot cooler and fresh with winds coming in from a northwesterly direction. So September 2019 has a CT of 14.3, a little bit above average, but not excessively so. A fairly average month, Trevor Harley writes, with a CT slightly above average at 14.3. Was quite a wet month though, 127% of average rainfall in the south. There's quite a bit of quiet weather for the early part of the month, as you tend to get in September, but by the fall we pull the high pressure out to our west and we drop in this trough of low from the north. That brings showers and longer spells of rain. So we go into this duel then between high pressure to the west and low pressure running around the top of the ridge to the north and the east. Moving through into the second week of September 2019, again we've got low pressure to our north, high pressure to our south, all looking really quite average really for September. The 12th tries to bring the Azores high back into play, so we're trying to push up some excessively high temperatures again from the south, but this time with a more invigorated jet stream than we have through the summer. That ridge does struggle. However, by the time we get through to the middle of the month, we are actually under a ridge of high pressure across England and Wales. Anyway, never really makes it into Scotland though. Going to the second half of the month, and we find ourselves under an area of high pressure then, so we do go through quite a dry and warm spell around the middle part of the month, but the high pressure is going to start weakening as we move into the last 10 days or so. The high pressure begins to slip eastwards, low pressure starts to move in from off the Atlantic, and we go into a much more unsettled, and dare I say, autumnal spell through the last week or so of the month, with low pressure rattling in from off the Atlantic. Autumn properly commences and underway, ending September 2019 on quite a wet note. So, it's relatively dry for the middle part of the month, starts unsettled, ends very unsettled, and it's classic autumnal conditions. That is remains of a hurricane or something down in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, by the way. Right, we're into October, which has a central temperature of 10.0, a little bit cooler for this month. It's a mostly unsettled month, generally rather cool, particularly in the north, and it's a wet month for England and Wales, particularly Cornwall and Yorkshire, but slightly drier than average over Scotland a little bit, bizarrely so, I suppose. So we begin with this little bit of a ridge through the country in the opening days. Winds are in from the north, quite cool during October 2019, but then this intense area of low pressure sweeps in on the 3rd. I think there's tropical, hurricane remains associated with that. More low pressure then rattling in as we go through into the second week of the month. So this sort of classic autumnal type weather, really, with plenty of wind and rain sweeping in from off the Atlantic Ocean and around deep areas of low pressure. The middle part of the month also looking very unsettled, with further bouts of rain coming in with these areas of low pressure, so much cooler and so much more unsettled as well compared to earlier on in the year. Right through to the final week of the month, again it's all low pressure dominated, so this is a very unsettled October, of course. Right at the very end though, we start to build up high pressure towards Iceland and turn the wind into the north to the northeast, so colder air is now beginning to move in across the country. We start turning things colder into the final sort of days of October 2019 under this area of high pressure. Minus 6.2 degrees is recorded out in Nahara on the 31st on Halloween. Hard overnight frost there. I think we're going to get to winter in a moment, I can promise you, and I think when we get to winter, there aren't many nights that record temperatures of -6 actually during winter of 2019-2020. So, we get one of the coldest temperatures of the whole period on the last day or last night of October. That's just the way the weather works sometimes. 101 millimetres of rain was recorded in a single day on the 26th in the Brecon Beacons. Right, we're into November then. So the last month of autumn 2019, low pressure sweeps in off the Atlantic. This is another very unsettled month. Has a settling temperature of 6.2. Trevor Harley writes, so that's a little bit colder actually. Trevor Harley writes, after a mild wet start, it became generally cool and at times cold in places. Rainfall overall at 97% of average, but it was very wet in the east with flooding, particularly in southern parts of Yorkshire. So a proper wet and windy start anyway to November 2019, and more low pressure wrapping through as we move up towards bonfire night. Actually, bonfire night begins to pull in something a little bit cold and drier from the north. So we do have a rather cooler or colder bonfire night, especially in the northern half of the country. More low pressure back in on the 6th and through to the 7th. Yeah, we've got low pressure right over top of the country. So there's always a little bit of a southerly trap, which takes heavy to the rain, of course, into more southern and eastern areas. So not as heavy with the rain, actually, in northern and western parts of the country. 63.8 millimetres of rain falls in Sheffield between the 7th and the 8th of November 2019. A little bit of a break, and then in comes the next low. Again, you notice that low going on a northwest southeast. There's a lot of interest at this point, about the coming winter with these lows, with these diving lows, as I call them, going on a northwest southeast sort of track. Another one pushes through on the 11th, bringing a further bout of wind and rain across the country. Again, you see how jet stream black line there, jet stream line up northwest southeast with the low pressure in the North Sea. More low pressure coming in off the Atlantic there around the middle part of the month, again bringing particularly wet weather into southern parts of the country. So, this November does look quite interesting for the coming winter, but it's a false dawn, I can tell you that. There is very little in the way of diving lows and that in the winter. But at this point, you can see the building blocks maybe are there for quite an interesting winter with these diving lows. We're on to the 20th. High pressure is trying to build out of Russia. Siberian high trying to push into Scandinavia, begin to block the course of these low pressure. So this is all looking very interesting, isn't it? The low pressure begins to slip down towards the Bay of Biscay, but almost started to turn wind around into the east there. But what it does do, of course, is blocking high to our northeast. It just keeps these areas of low pressure sort of locked in across the south. So it really is the south that gets a lot of the wettest of the weather during this particular November. A little bit of a break as we come towards month's end. High pressure building down from the north, and we're starting to turn drier and also colder again in the closing days of the month. Quite interesting. So the contrasting temperatures with this month, we get 16.9 degrees at Northwick and Devon on the first day, with the lowest temperature of the month, minus 9.9 at Braemar. And there was actually some snow with this, with this month. There's a little bit of snow, especially so in northern areas. 6 centimetres of snow fell at Morayshire on the 8th. So it was more wintry in November than at any point through meteorological winter, and let's get into meteorological winter now. Shall we? Here we go then. So you can see that on the 1st of December, we're actually starting off the winter 2019-20 with high pressure just to our west. So it's mainly dry but quite cool with winds in from the north. Look what happens through the first days of December 2019. So it's quite dry, cold and frosty at this point under this ridge of high pressure. But notice the polar vortex is beginning to power up almost on the first day of the month. We get the polar vortex powering up, the AO and the LEO starting to swing into negative phases. And here we go. By the 5th, we're setting up the pattern of the winter, which is a long fetch west-southwesterly. High pressure has slipped down to the south. Low pressure is forming around Greenland and Iceland. We're strengthening the zone of westerlies. And the onslaught begins. So here we go. We're rattling through these charts quickly. Wet and windy here on the 8th of December 2019 with low pressure sweeping in off the Atlantic. This month, by the way, has a central temperature of 5.8. It is a mild month. Trevor Harley writes the month was unsettled with a very wet first 3 weeks, particularly in southern and eastern areas. It was mild on average with a few colder interludes. It was sunny in the east but was dull in the west. There's going to be a new maximum temperature record of 18.7 degrees on the 27th, thanks to the phone effect. We'll look at that in a moment, of course. Right, so here we go then. The onslaught's underway. 10th of December, wet and windy, gale force winds and heavy rain sweeping in across the country via what we will come to see is the Polar Vortex of Doom. That's General Election Day. Remember, in 2019, we had our first general election in December since 1923, and anybody who remembers going out to vote on that day knows why we hadn't had a general election in December since 1923, because it was an absolutely appalling day. There was heavy rain across many parts of the country. I think it's even kind of a little bit of snow up in the north on the southern, on the north side of this area of low pressure. But the main thing about general election day, 12th of December 2019, was that it was just extremely wet and dull and generally quite mild, but of course with the rain and the cloud it doesn't feel overly mild at all. We're going into the middle part of the month still. The onslaught goes on. Low pressure is in off the Atlantic, meaning further showers, if not longer spells of rain. Maybe trying to go a little bit drier just after mid-month, but not for long. Looking for this next low sweeps in with a very mild southerly wind coming in with it as well. And so it goes on. We're running up towards Christmas again. Low pressure just repeatedly sweeping in across the country with bouts of heavy rain and strong winds as well. That's Christmas Eve. Actually a little bit drier and cooler on Christmas Eve with winds going into the northwest. That's Christmas Day. A little bit of a ridge across the country gives us a break from the onslaught. So it goes a little bit drier over Christmas. A little bit cooler as well. Not cold, but it's a little bit cooler under that ridge of high pressure. Slightly more seasonal feel. But by Boxing Day, we're back into those long fetch southwesterlies with more outbreaks of rain. And then run up to the end of the month, we begin to get high pressure setting up across Germany with deep low pressure around Greenland. We start to pull up this very warm southwesterly wind. So this is where we get those record temperatures, reach 18 degrees via the phone effect on these southwesterly winds in the closing days of December 2019. We finished December 2019 under high pressure, mainly dry, and of course going to be pretty warm at that point for the time of year on New Year's Eve. I think at that point we'll have another little break, and when we return we'll have the final part of this video which will look at the rest of the winter of 2019-2020, and we may extend it on into the spring as well. We'll see what time we have in a second. Do stretch your legs, and I'll see you very soon. Okay, we're back and we're ready to resume the third and final part of our look at 2019-2020. And yeah, we're going to pick up exactly where I stopped a second ago. If you're enjoying this historic video, please can you like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that, and drop a comment and let us know what you think, of course. Right, okay, so we're going to resume on New Year's Day. So where we left off on New Year's Eve, we was having very mild but reasonably dry weather. We're resuming now on the first day of January 2020, and we're still basically very mild but reasonably dry in the south. This is a very mild month. It has a central England temperature of 6.4. It's right up there with the mildest January is on record. It's anticyclonic in the first week, but there is going to be some unsettled weather too. So let's run through. Here we go then. So opening salvo, I suppose, for 2020 has high pressure to our southwest, trying to reach northeastwards. It's bringing a lot of dry and warm weather to southern parts of the country, but always looking more unsettled in the north. We're turning probably wet and windy again here from the cursed Polar Vortex of Doom. All of these purple colours around Greenland and Iceland bring plenty of wet and windy weather as we're moving into the second week of the month. Long fetch southwesterlies. Look at the upper air temperatures. They look very mild, especially so across southern parts of the country. A nightmare for anybody who likes cold and snow, this. Look at that, very, very wet and windy, stormy on the 13th. Proper gale force winds, proper blasts of strong winds and outbreaks of rain sweeping in across the country. Rainfall this month is 100% of average, but it is wetter in western areas and drier in eastern areas because, of course, the west is exposed to these westerly winds. On and on it goes, more wet and windy weather there on the 16th. Then we get a bit of a break. It turns a little bit drier and perhaps a little bit cooler as we get into the 19th and 20th. 20th courtesy of the Azores High, bringing up this southwesterly wind. Very high pressure recorded around these days, 1,049 to 1,050 millibars with this area of high pressure. Sets new records, I think, for some of us. That high pressure, intense high, carries on into the last week of the month, though. It begins to turn more unsettled again. In comes the Atlantic, back it comes as we move towards month's end, returning wet and windy once again. Of course, that takes us on into February. The onslaught just goes on into February with more heavy rain, courtesy of those areas of low pressure. Again, the high pressure tries to send a ridge up on the 4th, into the 5th, into the 6th. That high pressure is around for a couple of days, brings us a bit of a break. Not for long. Back comes the wind and rain, turns stormy by the time we get through to the 9th. The February CET for 2020 is 6.3, almost as warm as January. Both exceptionally mild months. Trevor Hardy writes, extremely wet with 3 large storm systems. It was the wettest February on record with 237% of average rainfall overall and over 40% in some places. It was slightly milder than normal in the south. It says it was slightly milder than normal in the south. Actually, it's an exceptionally mild month. I think it's downplaying that a little bit. 2 storms, Kira, is it Kira or Kara? I never knew. And Tennis brought strong winds and heavy rain through this month. So let's have a look then. This is looking very stormy here on the 9th of February, tempering to like cold zonality, so a little bit cooler, maybe even kind of some wintry showers in the north, very windy as well. The next low, that comes sweeping in as we go through into the 12th, so that's bringing the next batch of heavy rain and strong winds, and then in comes the next one. Look at these purple colours around Greenland in the North Atlantic. That is, ladies and gentlemen, the Polar Vortex of Doom. All of you remember the Polar Vortex of Doom. Say, I remember the PV of Doom in the comments, please, when you've watched this video. Thank you so much. Look at that. What a chart that is. 16th of January. 16th of January. 16th of February, I should say. 2020. Looking so stormy. Such tightly packed isobars. Severe gales. And bouts of really heavy rain sweeping through as well. Is this Kira? This might be Kira. I can't remember the exact day when Kira was, actually. It's perhaps a little bit earlier in the month. But incredible. Anyway, wet and windy. Just goes on and on and on. The onslaught continues into like the final sort of week or so of a month. Again, looking so incredibly stormy here with these gale force winds battering the country and more bouts of rain. You can see why it's the wettest February on record, just continuous low pressure. I think it's the most cyclonic February on record as well, or certainly one of them, with just continuous low pressure throughout the month. Absolutely incredible. I think there's quite a bit of flooding as well, because this had come after, you know, the deluge that we had in December too. January wasn't quite as wet, but was unsettled at times when we had this very wet February. So I know there was flooding in some parts of the country. I remember Sav went to see the floods in Telford in February 2019. Oh, we have a leap year, of course. So we have a 29th of February, which, surprise, surprise, is wet, wet and windy. And these very wet and windy, so they've ended the meteorological winter 2020, 2019, 2020, we're into spring 2020 now. And these wet and windy conditions did continue. You know, they carried on into March. Plenty of wind and rain continue to rattle through during the first week of March, but we will get a break in a moment. We will get a break, but for the time being, March 2020 is, wet and windy in the first half with further bouts of very, very heavy rain. Of course, at this point, the pandemic is beginning to really, really kick off as well, unfortunately. So we're all beginning to think about going into lockdown and whatnot. So the first half of March 2020 is very unsettled, further bouts of rain. This has a central England temperature of 6.7 by the way, CT of 6.7. So it's not an excessively mild month, actually. It's January and February aren't all that much cooler than this March, to be honest. Or they're all 3 months are quite closely aligned. But by March, 6.7 is actually, it's a little bit of a cooler month, really. Right, so into the second half of the month, after that wet, windy first half, we begin to get the Azores High starting to make a move and push up from at the south. We're beginning now to break out of the Polar Vortex of Doom. We're beginning to break out of the onslaught. 20th of March, we begin to see high pressure starting to take over and delivers us a different sort of end to the month as high pressure builds over to the east of the country. Income those easterly winds. We're turning drier and we're warming up as well as we're coming into the final week of the month. High pressure begins to try to get up towards Greenland late on in the month. Not really succeeding to do so, but pulling in perhaps quite a chilly easy wind. But the main thing is the break in the onslaught. This is much drier. And in the March sunshine, feeling relatively warm as well. And then that takes us on into April, where we have a central temperature of 10.4, very warm April, to say the least. It's mostly anticyclonic with frequent easterly winds. It was the sunniest April on record. I'm sure you remember it so very well in the lockdown with the sunshine. What an extraordinary month this was. Overall, it was warmer than average, and it's the 5th warmest since 1884, and a very dry month as well. Let's see how this one develops then. High pressure. We tried to pull in some northerly winds early on in the month, actually. We tried to get a bit of a northerly, something we have not had for months and months and months. It doesn't really come off though, and we actually finish up with a southerly by the 5th. So very warm and mainly dry, some rain out in the west, and we keep these warm dry conditions, high pressure dominated conditions going into the second week of the month. There's low pressure coming and going, but overall high pressure is in control. A day after day of sunshine and blue skies and really warm temperatures as well. Absolutely extraordinary, really, the month. We get 26 degrees, can you believe that, in Cornwall on the 10th. Below for the month is minus 6.9 at Braemar on the 19th. So, you know, it's amazing the contrast that we get with these anticyclonic Aprils. They can still be quite cold at night, but by day they can be really warm as well. On and on we go into the latter stage of the month. We begin to pull something a little bit cooler in from the north. So we just start to cool things down slightly and perhaps turn things a bit more unsettled right at month's end with low pressure starting to come in. So after, you know, virtually a month of dry and warm weather, we do end April 2020 on a slightly more unsettled note, and then that takes us into May. We're going to leave off in a moment. May has a central temperature of 12.5. Again, it's mostly anticyclonic month. It was a very sunny month, the sunniest month on record with 100, I think that's sunniest May on record, with 140, might be a sunniest month, I don't know, with 143% of average, and was particularly sunny for England and Wales. Let's have a look then. So once again, after that slightly more unsettled end to April, high pressure very quickly back in, giving us a dry and very warm spell of weather as we go into first week of the month. Now, this is quite interesting. This is the 9th of May 2020. The high pressure continues to move up towards Greenland and Iceland, and we have a go at pulling in some really quite cold air from the northeast. Look at this. We bring the minus 10 Celsius isotherm into North Scotland. I remember this quite well. That is unusual to get the minus 10 into Scotland in May. So despite this being a really warm month, we've got minus 5 Celsius isotherm there on the 10th of May 2020, all the way down to the Midlands. Minus 10 is into Scotland. I remember that. I was live streaming, I think, on that day. You remember there's a live stream from the Sunday the 10th of May 2020 when we was monitoring the minus 10 Celsius isotherm digging into northern Scotland on those easterly and northeasterly winds. Still, those northerly winds continue. I remember I had to cover up my delicates as well during this May, caused all sorts of havoc, this little cold snap, with gas delicates. Doesn't last that long though. We're back into much milder, warmer southwesterly winds by the time we get into the second half of the month, and we're resuming, you know, like a push of real warmth from the south again as we're pushing on into the second half of the month. A little bit wet and windy there perhaps for a day or two, but then we're back to high pressure again as we come into the end of May 2020. We're actually ending the month on really quite a hot note, I think. 28.3 degrees Celsius Fahrenheit recorded on the 29th under this area of high pressure. Upper air temperatures look really warm as well with that area of high pressure. So yeah, we end May 2020 on a dry and pretty hot note. And I think that's where we will end this video. So one epic this has been. I hope you enjoyed it. everyone. So we've covered the summer of 2019, we've covered autumn 2019, we've covered autumn and winter, or winter 2019, 2020, and spring 2020 as well. At that point, I'm going to end the video, and that's it. So what's going to happen next, let's just put this down. What's going to happen next is that we will pick this up exactly where we're leaving off on the first day of June 2020 on August Bank Holiday Monday. I do not know what day that is, but on Bank Holiday Monday at the end of August, we will start running through, it's around the 30th it might be, we will start running through the summer of 2020 and then autumn and winter to spring 2020, 2021, and the idea is we will come virtually up to, present day. So part 2, really, the concluding second part will be with you on August Bank Holiday Monday. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like the video if you did. Drop comments, let us know what you think. Do you remember some of these events taking place? Remember that live stream? Drop comments to let us know what you think, and sub the channel. You'll be able to see future web content, including future historic videos, if you do that. So, as I say, I'm having a bit of a break at the moment. I'm going to be back on Sunday with a resumption of all of the regular videos, and also with the live stream on Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Make sure you check out Sab's forecast as well. Thank you so much to Sabby for doing the daily forecast for me while I have this little break, and yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to end the video there, and we're going to resume the story on August Bank Holiday Monday. But for this historic weather video, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.